So I am with Indraneel Chitale, who is heading Chitale Bandhu as a brand, and let me tell you, with one of the most emotionally intelligent persons that I have met in this field. So Indraneel, I'm going to talk to you about emotional intelligence today.
Yeah.
Okay, it's about how do you handle yourself, how much aware you are, how do you motivate yourself, आणि स्वतःला तुम्ही कसं मॅनेज करता, right? And how do you maintain relationships with people?
Yeah.
So this is generally what we can say captures the essence of emotional intelligence, bhavanik buddhimatta, right? So let's start with self-awareness. When did you realize that, or what are those episodes, if you can narrate one or two, where you found some hidden things inside you and you felt, okay, this is my calling and this is what my strength is, this is where I need to improve upon. So please comment on self-awareness.
Yeah, sure. So I think I was fortunate enough to spend some time in Germany working.
Okay.
And I think the way German culture, especially when it comes to manufacturing, molds you, you become extremely system-driven. And I think I came back with the same thought when I came back to India. And I started realizing that, the nature of doing work in India is very different than what a European standard is. Not in terms of quality, but more in terms of managing people. And while systems were being set, there was not enough acceptance of systems because it was in a way considered to be oppressive.
Correct.
And that's when I started realizing that, hey, why is it that we are going wrong in putting a system which is actually going to make the life of people easy? And why can't there be a rational outlook towards it which positively accepts it? And that is when I realized that, hey, one thing probably we're not having enough empathy in the system. So we need to put that first. Secondly, when it comes to implementing systems, are we actually putting in a buying in of every stakeholder in the system? And in India, what I would say is that, because we're not naturally a system-driven country, we value the individual opinion quite excessively. So managing a balance where people drive that system more effectively and take ownership of it required that we understood what is going in the mind of the people as well. And thirdly, while doing that, what I always believe is that a system needs to be self-sufficient, where the human capital of it should be a strength, not a liability where that capital is pulling you down. So to build that, everybody needs to be accountable and everybody needs to be engaging towards improving the system. So for that, understanding the emotional connect is very, very important, I feel. And that's where I realized that probably I am losing all of this and I need to remold myself to be accountable for what I'm trying to set and also win the buying in of all the people and the stakeholders who are going to be important for this. And that's where the journey for self-realization started, that how do I actually come off as a person where I understand what's going on in the mind of the people and actually win the people first and then set the system. And I think once we started doing that better, I think the history of growth of the company in the last decade has been there for everybody to visible. And it's all thanks to the people here.
Wonderful.
So that contributes to it is what I would say.
Brilliant, Indraneel. And when it comes to, while you are navigating through this process, I'm sure you must be facing certain setbacks, some amount of failure, not maybe per se, but some kind of action correction, that kind of a thing. So what are those episodes that you can share with us? What are those points that you would like to share with our audience?
Sure. So I think same part of the systems process. What once happened with me was that when we were trying to franchise our store operations, where the family had been operating stores for over 50, 55, 60 years maybe. The reason was pretty logical for me in the sense that, hey, this is actually going to help us grow our franchising business much faster. And if we stop operating the stores and look at the strategy and actually partner with people who can operate stores for us, we could probably grow faster. So this was a very standard linear logic which I thought would work with everybody.
Wonderful.
But then when that was being proposed, there was a big issue because one, there was an identity crisis for a lot of people because all they had done their life was work and operate the stores.
Correct.
Secondly, there was a big issue in terms of what would be their repurposing of life, because that was something that they were so committed to that the logic, while it made sense, did not really solve their problem in terms of where they are going to be gainfully engaged.
Correct.
And thirdly, the big idea was that there is a big inertia that comes into it. which when you are thinking from a very, very logical, systemic process point of view, it does not factor in, because it's not a measurable factor for inertia. So after facing a lot of resistance, I actually realized that one of the key things to manage is stakeholder management. And with stakeholder management, communication and empathy are two very important things.
Brilliant.
And if you have to have empathy, you have to have the emotional intelligence of what the other person is actually reading into what you're trying to say. So how do you build that? How do you understand that? Is where I think we learned it. I wouldn't say I learned it myself, but we had a leadership coach who actually coached me through this process and actually helped me understand how stakeholder management works. And that actually led to a big transformation, because that was one of the big knots that we untangled at Chitale as a history. And then from at that time where we were probably operating 12 to 14 stores, today we operate 120 stores across the world.
Wonderful.
So this transition could be affected because of this self-experience and this self-learning that communication plays a crucial role, and communicating does not mean just putting your point of view. It's got to do with listening a lot of people and their opinions.
Listening.
And finding a way ahead.
Yes, that's a brilliant word that you have brought into the discussion. I remember we first communicated, we first touched base when I watched your advertisement
Correct.
on Chitale Bandhu.
Correct.
Right? That was very striking.
Yeah.
I said, what is this? I mean, is it a new brand altogether? What is this Bhagini word in this
Correct.
Chitale Bandhu? And I reached out to you, and I must say you were very reachable also. I think that's one trait I want the audience to note. People who are emotionally intelligent are also very approachable and go-getter kind of person. Fine. So empathy and that Chitale Bhagini, can you comment on that story?
So one of the big things that happens is that Chitale Bandhu as a brand is a very family-friendly brand. So we are never actually competing in a space where we are trying to sell a very cheap product or we are trying to sell a very low standard product. Chitale as a brand has always resonated with quality as an aspect, and that is why one of our key buyers is the woman of the house.
Wonderful.
And if we are not actually appealing to the woman of the house, where that woman has the authority and the ability to determine what she feeds her family.
Decision making.
Correct.
Part, yes.
And no woman actually goes to a point and does a decision where she would do something wrong in terms of feeding somebody in the family.
Correct.
That's a very, very natural responsibility that comes
Very
with
basic
women.
responsibility.
Correct. And that's where as a brand we thought we should be appealing to them, because that way that connection was always natural, but we never made it a point to actually understand or recognize them in a formal manner. And that is where we thought that let's put this transition into the picture where we actually recognize and showcase that the importance of women consumers, and the multiple roles that they face in the society, where especially in today's times the modern woman is also struggling with many challenges, which is including work-life balance.
Correct.
So amidst this, as a brand, we are there to make their life easy and not make it complicated. Is something that where we want to stand and empower them and their family to have good nutritious food. So that's how the idea came in, and that's how the script resonated, and I think people loved it.
People loved it. I was one of them, and in my circle we all talked about this wonderful way of reaching out to the unsung heroes, who do not get much of recognition.
Correct.
In many places. Okay, so this is about how you put empathy to practice. If you can talk about self-management. Now self-management मधला सगळ्यात मोठा घटक, the most important aspect of self-management, which people want to know about, is time management. There are many other components to that, but time management is a big concern. So how does Indraneel manage his time, reaching out to people, managing relationships, managing family and this business and all of that? What is your secret to time management?
So I think I would say what I've come to realize is that as by nature, the kind of traits I have, and I've come to realize I am more productive when I actually know what I'm supposed to do. And that is why having that visibility of what my time is required and where my time is required and what am I supposed to decide in that time is something that I prefer having. So over the last 12-14 years that I've been working, fortunately I've been able to build a system which is strong enough where I have a visibility of what I want to do next week or what I want to do next month. Especially in terms of travel also, because we are operating across the world, how I want to schedule all of it. So with all of this, what has worked well for me is firstly having a very, very good systemized calendaring system where you sort of plan what you want to do.
Correct.
And when you plan it very well, I think that improves your presence in the meeting as well. So, and beyond that, the self-realization, what I've come to see is that along with the planning, putting in some thoughts every day in the morning where post-workout I just sit down for about 5 minutes and prepare myself for the day. where I know for a visibility that I have 8 meetings to attend in a day, and of the 8 meetings, probably 6 meetings are where I have to listen and 2 are where I have to take a decision.
Wonderful.
So what is the decision that I need to take, and what is the listening ability I need to have? So if all of this can be summarized well, if I know well, I am well prepared into the meeting. And I think one of the important things I have come to realize with all the leadership coaching and seeing all leaders is about integrity. So with integrity, the thing is that you as a leader need to have the ability to be present in every meeting you're present in and actually deliver for your team, because they are also working equally hard.
Correct.
So while doing that, if at that moment where a decision has to be taken, you are not present and you are actually letting your team down, then you as a leader are not doing your job very well. So that's why preparing, anticipating and actually coming prepared is something that I rely heavily on to, and that has been something that has worked well for me, because then I know for a time that it also helps me balance my work-life balance well. Where I know what time I want to be with my kids, how I want to spend time with my wife, how I want to spend time with my friends as well, and what are the activities that I want to do beyond work, which are something that mentally stimulate me or just are very engaging for me from a sporting perspective. So scheduling and just having good visibility is something that helps, and then preparing for it.
Wonderful. So this is about a professional like you who is on the job, who is in the corporate, who is a promoter, where he has the the luxury at times to decide what he can, how much he can put on his plate. But because as I told you, I teach young minds there who are yet to enter the corporate world. If you have to give a kind of what you can say, a guideline to them, given their age and stage, what could be certain things that, because they don't have the luxury to
That's
decide.
true. Yeah.
Everything is decided for them.
Correct.
In the beginning of their careers, right? So what do they need to adapt to or adopt in order to become better at self-management when it comes to time management, precisely?
Yeah, I mean, I completely relate to what you're trying to say. And I would say that was the same case maybe 14 years ago when I joined the company.
Correct.
Where I think somebody else was deciding what I was supposed to do in the time. And it can be a rather demanding situation because you're pulled in different directions before you sort of set course to where you want to be on a track.
Correct.
So it is unnerving at times, and it can be very unpleasant to people who are used to scheduling.
Correct.
So I think one thing I feel is that everybody should aim towards the point that this is the kind of exposure you want in terms of your life as a life goal. So the sooner you start saying that I want to see where I want to be and what I want to do, you start making decisions which are progressive towards your career as well.
Okay.
But secondly, along with that, what I would say is that in the initial days of your life, especially when you've just finished school or you've just finished grad school, B school, you should be a lot more flexible towards trying a lot more things.
Okay.
So maybe the luxury of time might not be on your side, but then you're at age where age is on your side. So how wide can you spread yourself and figure out what you don't want to do is something that you should be doing immediately after college. And then sort of filter into a point where you cut off the loose ends and start building a core around yourself. And then people will start respecting you and your value for time as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. And then when we have to talk about, say, social skills as a component, although because we are targeting this podcast to people who want to know more about emotional intelligence. So how do you manage your when you do all these things? How would you define emotions? What do emotions mean to you?
Well, I think emotions is a very strong sense of relation to that situation that a person will have. So emotion could be extreme joy, extreme anger, extreme pleasure, extreme sadness also. And that way it could be momentary or it could be long term as well, based on the kind of exposure you have to that environment. But along with that, what I also believe is the emotion that you carry before you actually experience something. So we come from the food industry, and that way what they say in Marathi is that माणूस पहिला घास बघून खातो. So the thing is that when we decide that hey, I like a burger, I want to eat a burger, I've already decided that I'm going to be happy about eating a burger.
Correct.
So that way, if I have that mental note about the fact that every experience that I'm trying to do, I'm going to come out with an emotion that is going to be better than what I entered it with. You're likely to have an outcome which is going to be very good at it.
Correct.
So how do you build that is something that I think everybody should start putting a thought into. And I think the more you set that, the more you're likely to start facing success out of it as well. And get responses which are very positive.
Okay, wonderful. So that was about what you wanted to explain on that. When it comes to managing relationships or networking, because these days that is something in all ages for that matter, I think that is the key, one of the key things that defines the length and breadth that you can cover if you're good in managing social relationships. So managing yourself is managing your own emotions is one part of it, but managing other people's emotions and your relationships with them, I think is also a major thing, major challenge. What are your ways of doing it?
Well, so I think when it comes to dealing with people, what I would say is that very often we end up having a problem with the person and not with the problem. So one of the things that I've come to learn and come to practice, and which something I tell all my team all the time, is that focus on the problem, not on the person. If the problem is something that you both seem to agree upon, very often the investment of both energy and emotions is towards solving the problem and not figuring out who's right or wrong. Secondly, what I would say is that mentally we need to accept diversity as a factor. We want to be too rationalized in thinking that everything is binary and everything is going to be very unilateral in terms of ideology. I don't think so that is the case. And the sooner you accept it, the more sooner you can be global. Because embracing diversity is very crucial, because otherwise we would all be looking like the same and then would be just talking like robots.